Another beautiful Sunday mind emission on the Toad Cam. Where were we? We were studying. We were studying in our minds. Or were we studying? I'm not sure. Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens once gave a wonderful talk, and apparently it was so funny, and Siegmund Freud, by the way, was a great fan of Mark Twain. And Freud was attending Twain's lectures because Twain had to raise some money. He was constantly getting into bad investments, these terrible investment ideas, and having to support his lifestyle by touring the continent and giving lectures. And Freud loved to attend Mark Twain's lectures. He thought they were fabulous and actually quoted them in one of his books. Only Woody Allen would appreciate this. Civilization and its discontents, which I think is a rough translation of the German Das Unbehagen in der Kultur. Twain's, I don't know if this was the title of his lecture or a quip, it was "The first melon I ever stole," or was it? And that quote is directly there in Das Unbehagen in der Kultur. Go figure. You know, it's funny. I also remember I attended a lecture by that was hosted, or it was presented by the New York Psychoanalytic Society on Freud, and I don't know what this was, like, you know, Freud Centennial or something, and I don't know, Centennial of what? It was something to do with Freud, and it was beautiful, really wonderful evening, and the MC is not exactly the term. The guy who was kind of managing the event read a fairly lengthy letter from Freud home that Freud had written to his family when he was touring Italy, and the personal Freud, you know, the Freud that was actually reporting on, just describing events for the pleasure of his family, for the people who would take pleasure in reading his letters, you know, is very, very different than this kind of, you know, authoritative, gruff, formal, kind of pedantic Freud, you know, that was writing the Freud books, the series of books that became the Standard Freud that I think Ernest Jones translated and created the Standard Freud, which of course managed to leave out Freud's first work on cocaine, his four articles on cocaine that collectively are called Über Coca. So Über Coca is not part of the Standard Freud. Although I think it's a wonderful study of coming to realize, starting off, you know, his first experiences with cocaine were very optimistic, and he felt that it was this wonder drug that gave you access to all these fantastic, fantastic abilities, and unlocked these parts of yourself, and helped you transcend all these petty, distracting pains. And then, you know, as the four papers go along, and sort of the end of Über Coca, he's very concerned about it. He sees its dark side, its addictive powers, its disruptive powers. So it's really quite a mental journey. Über Coca is quite a mental journey from, you know, overly idealizing something. If you want to see a study of, you know, going from idealizing and kind of worshiping something to being very critical of something, seeing all its faults and its flaws, and why you know, it's perhaps not what it was billed as. So in a certain way, I guess Über Coca could be, and the journey, the mental journey and the internal journey he took with Über Coca, in many ways probably was a template for many of the other later journeys he took, looking at his beliefs about cultures and ids and the various instincts, you know, the pleasure principle, beyond the pleasure principle, and so on. So when we get very wrapped up in the idea of, you know, study, you know, it's like you can get very kind of, oh God, just that word, you know, just study something. I think that word itself has become so negatively connoted in the English language when we talk about that. We have to come up with whole other ways of talking about learning, absorbing, internalizing knowledge, and allowing powerful, empowering self-advancing knowledge to enter into our reality fields and find new language for it. So Freud wrote this letter home to his family, and the guy that was there at the New York Psychoanalytic Institute was reading it. The host, I guess we'll call him the host. Our host was reading it, and it was really wonderful. Freud's capacities, his powers of observation and his powers of description and his sense of humor and ability to observe, describe, and find humor in all these myriad details. Attending some opera, I don't know where he was, what city he was in, he was attending an opera, and he noticed that the curtain of the opera was completely covered with advertisements. Something even today we would find absolutely gauche. But he was describing all the different advertisements that were on this curtain that was down before the opera began, and you were basically just looking at this. It was like a wall that was plastered with bills that people had stuck up, except they had paid to put them on the curtain. I don't know how they were put on, by silkscreen or something like that. But it gave me a totally different feeling for who the man Freud was, and sort of who he was as a personal man, and just what he noticed about it, and how much his genius, the real genius of Freud was founded on his powers of observation. And I thought that was really intriguing. That it got my own kind of curiosity really going. That if you said what sort of put him on the path that he was on, and what allowed him to attain the level of sort of significance that he did, I think a lot of that had to do with his power of observation. The man must have been just preternaturally observant. No detail got by him. He was so aware of what he was looking at, so aware of his environment, and he seemed to be so aware also of the implications and interrelations between the details. So he wasn't just looking at a mass of details, or wasn't just looking at a huge, sort of world coming at him, in sort of all its fine-grained, fine-chunked, variegated complexity. But Freud was also able to see sort of the layers behind all that, the motivating layers. And I think that was the second thing. Freud had a very, very deep power of observation, and he also had a very, very deep sense of motivation. So what was, if you wanted to model it, and I would hate using that term, but map Freud's processes, what was the question that was constantly recurring in Freud's mind, I think, was, what motivates this? What is the motivating force of this? What causes this? So he was looking at this detail, he was looking sociologically, he was looking individually, he was looking psychologically, and constantly asking what were the motivating forces. And also, I think the other question that he was asking, what were the demotivating forces? And we rarely talk about demotivation, the depletion or the removal or the blocking of motivation. So he was also very, very attentive to demotivation, anti-motivation, how you were demotivated to notice certain things and you were motivated to notice other things. This idea that sick man fraud, I think one of the figures in NLP has resorted to this term. Now, if he had said this in the presence of Freud, Freud, I think, would have immediately understood the implications, and he would have said, Mr. NLP genius, sir, are you familiar with the idea of unconscious confession? So I'll leave you with that thought. Have a nice day. Beautiful day out here. Beautiful Sunday.